And Lord, we thank you for getting us through another week, Lord, even though there is such an ordeal going on and such crisis going on. We thank you for the Sabbath day, Father, that we can come and enter into your rest and into peace, Father. And I just pray for each and every one of us to experience that peace, even through the midst of this great crisis, that we can trust, Father, that we are safely in your arms, and that no matter what comes our way, Lord, no matter what comes our way, when we keep our eyes fixed on you, we will be blessed and into your peace, Father. We are so thankful for the light that you've been shining upon us that gives us, Father, the ability to not have fear. And I pray, Father, for any that still do, maybe because every now and then some of us still do, even myself, wrestle with those thoughts, that we're so thankful that you recall to our minds the precious promises, Lord, and bring us through that we might build our faith, Father. For we just are thankful, Father, that Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith. And through all these events and through these lines, you are finishing our faith. So we want to lift up to you, Father, all the medical personnel that is out there, that is at the front lines of this battle. Lift up to you, Father, as well, those that are within the government that are striving to help the American people and walking a very fine line in this whole situation, to perhaps not lose their jobs so that they can still be in a position to try to help the American people. We just want to thank you for those. We want to pray for the Levites and the Nethinims, Lord, and for the priests that are around the world, that as we go through this, we would have greater and greater vision as to what is happening. For the Levites and for the Nethinims as well, that they be prepared to enter in and pass their tests, Father. We want to pray for our families, Lord, all of our loved ones, that they too would be seeing what is going on, and that they would be being drawn unto you, because we know, Father, that none can come to the Father except the Father draw them unto himself. And we just pray, Father, that you would draw our families unto yourself. May your protection be upon all your people, Lord, and may the glorious light continue to shine down upon us, Father, making us ready priests for this great work. We ask you, Father, as we open up this mini Zoom camp meeting, that your presence would be with us, Father. We ask you for your blessing to be upon our sister Tony as she presents the message tonight. And may your Holy Spirit be with us all, Father, and that we could, through these lines, through your truth, and by your grace and mercy, be united in truth, Father. We thank you for hearing and answering our prayers, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Hey everybody, it's nice to have you all here. The longest time period is not the 25-20 Parmenides Camp meeting in Germany. It says the last presentation we looked at the parable of the wheat and the tares, found in Matthew chapter 13, 24, verse 24. And why did we go to that passage? What are we looking for? We were looking for the good and the bad. Does anyone else remember why did we go to Matthew chapter 13? So it's a lot of information that we're handling, and it's easy to lose our direction and forget the reason of why we go down a particular path. We're looking at vow 21 and vow 24. One of them is dealing with the judgment of the living. The other is dealing with Revelation 18, the sealing, the sprinkling. And its focus really is about all these events occurring at 9/11. So if we just summarize those two issues, those two thoughts, it's all about 9/11 and what occurs there. Whether it's the end of Revelation 18 coming down, the latter rain, or the judgment of the living. How did we come to those conclusions about the importance of 9/11? Now, the answer to these questions is lost in the midst of time, which is quite disconcerting, quite worrying, because it's not that many years ago. So it's always good to try to understand why we did what we did. And we go through these studies. People are confused because they don't know what is right and what is wrong anymore. It's not my purpose to shake your faith, but we do need to think about what we believe and why we believe those things. So the first part of our study, as we look at these two vows, what was the first thing that we wanted to think about? The third angel's message. That's the first thing we need to address. We're 9 presentations into this study, and what I've tried to do is go over the same thoughts and ideas repeatedly so that we can become familiar not only with the issues, but also with the sequences. If you want to do a study on the vows or this message, particularly these two vows, vows 24 and vow 21, you need to have a good working knowledge, a good working understanding of the third angel. Now, we haven't looked at the wording of the third angel. We haven't looked at the spirit of prophecy quotes about how big or how wide the third angel is when it encompasses. All we've managed to do thus far is to establish the beginning and the end of the third angel. Now you think that you would have an easy job, an easy thing to do, but obviously it's not that easy because we're not fully clear on what these issues are. We're looking at these vows 24 and vow 21. We want to understand about 9/11 and what happened there and why we believe those things happen on that date. Another important thing we need to be clear on, and people still not seem to be crystal clear on this issue, people still think somehow, some way that what I'm about to say isn't correct. Ellen White knows absolutely nothing about 9/11. There's nothing in her writing about that subject. God gave her no insight into that waymark, that event. So I've tried to insist upon this for several years. Like this movement, there's an inability for people to accept that. There's still a lot of resistance by people in the movement. When I say that Ellen White never mentions 9/11, I cannot imagine we could have gone for 30 years to come this far in our movement and constructed everything around this waymark of 9/11. And there's no reference to an inspiration. So I don't know what you think about this matter. If you think, of course, she talks about it, she must have spoken about it, we couldn't have been wrong. We couldn't have been wrong. People seem to equate the fact that I say Ellen White never speaks about the subject to mean that we're wrong. I don't believe that we're incorrect about 9/11, but at the same time, I don't believe Ellen White speaks about the subject. What I want you to do, if this was a class, not a camp meeting, about now I'd start asking people questions. And the question I'd ask, what is your position on 9/11? The first person who would say Ellen White speaks about it, I'd ask them, prove that. So if you find yourself in that position, ask yourself, what's the proof that you have? What's the evidence? Because I would suggest there is no evidence. In order to establish that waymark, what you must do is create a structure. And that structure must be based upon precise and valid methodology. And what we've tended to do in the past is be very slack or lazy in our thinking. And all of this depends upon how you read inspiration. We spoke about this yesterday, if you recall, on this board work, how a prophet who's alive in the present setting, he or she, might have some communication with God. Angels may impress or speak to their mind, but they're not considered to be a prophet. They don't tend to have dreams and visions. And even if they do, they're not considered an inspired statement. So what do you have to do to prove their point, to defend what they want to say? What's their only recourse? Sound witness. So they take existing inspired statements and they use them in their own context. They're forced to do it. And when they do that, you will find invariably that they twist or manipulate the meaning of those portions of inspiration. Ellen White, in her generation, for whatever reason, I don't know the reason, she does not want women to wear the same clothes as men. I don't know why. Now she's just going to tell you, don't wear the same type of clothes. And people are going to say, why? We can wear what we want. And she's going to say, no, you can't. And we'll say, who said? And she's going to say, Moses said. We're in the time period of Moses, maybe about 3,000 years ago. And what are women wearing in that history? A long dress or robe. So that's what a woman would wear. So what is a man wearing? The same thing. So in this picture, which one is the man and which one is the woman? Can you tell? That's my little artwork. So Ellen White says men must dress one way and women must dress another way. And she's going to say, I'm going to prove this to you if you don't take my word for it. Ellen White will take you to Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 5, which says women is not allowed to wear the same clothes as the man, and the man is not allowed to wear the same clothes as a woman. She says that's simple enough to understand. Men wear trousers, women wear dresses. There's your proof text. And everyone says, wow, of course, it's obvious. They don't think when Moses says that they're wearing the same clothes. We could be foolish and we can think that that Moses wrote that. He said, let me write these things. So 3,000 years later, people can use that verse to defend trousers and dresses. Of course, he's not doing that. And he has no idea what the earth is even going to, and he has no idea that the earth is even going to last 3,000 years. He wrote that statement for the people who were alive when he was there. Not whatever you might think that verse means. It does not mean that men and women don't wear robes. And I can assure you, women's robes in that period of time didn't have little laces around the edges. It wasn't like that. So whatever the verse means, it doesn't mean women can't wear trousers. Jump forward 1,000 years. We're in the timeline of Christ now. And what are men still wearing? And women? The same thing. You jumped forward 500 years. What are they wearing? The same thing. Go and look at the Roman culture. And if you're a soldier and you went on the winter campaign, you'd wear, in English, they call them long johns or thermal trousers under their skirts, just like women do today. They wear leggings underneath the skirt. And that's well over 1,000 years after the time of Christ. So this modern way of dressing, women wear dresses, men wear trousers, it's modern. So Ellen White wants to maintain the status quo. This is not a study of why, it's a study of the evidence or the proof that it should be that way. Because the proof text that she's going to use cannot honestly be used to defend her position. Hold on, sorry, I'm back then. Okay, I apologize. Where was I? I'm looking for position. Oh, yeah. Now, lest you think I don't believe in the spirit of prophecy or I don't agree with her, you'd be mistaken. I believe Ellen White has authority to go into Deuteronomy, and she will tell you what that verse means. But you must understand that dynamic. She could tell you what the verse means, period. She could tell you what the verse means in her circumstances, in her dispensation. In the time of Moses, men didn't wear blue robes and women didn't wear pink ones. In our culture, in our cultural norms that we had are the same norms that they had when those statements were written. So that's just one simple example that's current. Not only in our movement, but in the church. Not only in our church, but also in conservative Christianity across the world, and how you read inspiration. The purpose that it serves for the time period in which you live. So when we come to our dispensation and we want to try to understand what the prophet spoke about, we will do what they did, every single one. They take inspiration and they apply it in a way that they think is correct. And if you considered them a prophet of God, their application is correct. Are we all familiar with the prophecy of Joel? What's Joel's prophecy? Children will do what? They will dream and they will see visions. What will happen in the sky? The sun will go dark and the moon will turn into blood. Have you read have you read anywhere that anything like that has happened at Pentecost? No. What does Peter say? What you see that's happening all around you is the fulfillment of what? Joel. It looks nothing like the prophecy. It feels nothing like the prophecy, but he says it's the fulfillment of that. And what do we say? We say, of course, because Peter says it must be. I'll give you a third example. Malachi chapter 3, verse 23. Behold, I send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. What is that a prophecy about? What's the great and dreadful day of the Lord? Malachi chapter 3, verse 23, in the German, Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 in the English. What is that day? The end of the world? The great day, the great and dreadful day of the Lord? When God's going to destroy the earth, I think that's what it's referring to. But if you go to the New Testament, what did they call John the Baptist? Elijah. And it's based upon this prophecy. What dreadful day was there? You might argue that the destruction of Jerusalem was a dreadful day, but this prophecy is not talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. One little city 2,000 years ago, Ellen White is talking about the great controversy, and yet the people applied this passage to the first advent, and we just accepted at face value. So there's example after example. It's a common practice. If you're in the same time period at the first advent, you'll take an Old Testament prophecy and say, this applies to us, even when it might not have done. That's what we're doing. It's using that principle that we've created 9/11. And I think it's important for us to be clear on this issue so we don't get deceived into thinking when Malachi spoke about the dreadful day, he was speaking about the first advent. Or when Moses was speaking about what men and women wear, that he was speaking about dress and trousers. But when Joel was speaking about the sun, moon, and our children, that he wasn't speaking about the day of Pentecost. We really do need to be clear on these issues so that we can look at inspiration honestly, intelligently. so that we're clear when all these prophets took these messages of inspiration and did that. I believe they were led by God. They did what they were required to do in their generation. But those passages that they used to defend their position do not mean what they say they mean. I'll give you another example. Maybe one that's a little closer to home. So these charts are a pictorial representation of the 2520. So first of all, the 2520 is not found in the Bible or in the spirit of prophecy. Are we clear on that? The whole idea is this kind is found in Leviticus 26 in the phrase 7 times. Now the phrase means not a sentence, but more than one word. 7 times, it's 2 words. It's a phrase. So that's where the first problem arises. Because of course in the original, it's not a phrase, it's a singular word, 7. Okay, someone take over for me till I come back?
I can.
Okay.
So that's where the first problem arises, because of course in the original it's not a phrase, it's a singular word, 7. Let's deal with this in a very simple fashion. 7 times. What the Millerites are going to do, they're going to take that word, which in original is 1 word that got translated into 2 words. It's in the English. And then they say, we know what times means. It equals 360 years. It doesn't. That does not mean 360 years. In Leviticus 26, that does not mean 360. They'll do 7 times 360 and get 2520. So 7 times equals, so there'll be like 7 times 360, right? 7 times equals 360 years. 7 times 360 years equals 2520. I don't mind if the Millerites want to do that, but let's not pretend that's what it means in Leviticus 26, because it doesn't. This is a clear example. People taking inspired statements and using them in a way that they think is right in their own history. If we can recognize this and be honest about what has happened, we can save ourselves from looking silly. Being honest doesn't mean we reject the leading of God. Ellen White says that these charts, particularly this one of 1843, she comments directly about, were directed by God's hand. I take that at face value. That is so. Then she says she has a vision, or there was a prophecy about this chart, the 1850 chart. I think that must be so then. It has to be so. Both charts deal with the 2520 in the way that it's dealt with here. 7 times equals 360 years. 7 times 360 equals 2520. The calculation might look a little different, but it's right up there at the top of the chart. That's fine, but how do we deal with that? Do we say William Miller says it's 2,500 years? Ellen White says God directed these charts. It mentions 2520 down here. If you go to the top, it's small, but it's 677. 1844, which is 2520. And because Ellen White says these were directed by the hand of God's hand, this must be the true correct answer of the following Bible passages, 18, 21, 24, and 18. So that's Leviticus 26, 18, 21, 24, and 28. Can we continue? We've come up with clever answers to explain all this. Some are good, some are not so good. Mine too sinister good. Okay, now if you're willing to see what I've spoken about with the clothing issue, with the issue of Joel and Malachi, then you could be willing to see that when the Millerites addressed this passage, and they did this 7 times equals 360 years, 7 times 360 equals 2520, this is not what Moses meant. The prophecy of Moses, Leviticus 26, is fulfilled around 500 years after Moses wrote it. It wasn't fulfilled in 1844. 1843 is the indicate. But what the Millerites are going to do, they're going to make an application of this passage to develop this logic, this truth. So what we've been talking about, we read in early writings that angels directed the mind of Miller. I accept that at face value. He had 3 prophecies: the 2520, the 2300-day prophecy, and the 1335 prophecy. These were the 3 key prophecies, and he used those to develop his message, that everything was going to finish or happen, come to its conclusion. Ellen White's going to comment extensively on that history. Now our critics are going to tell us, if we believe in the 2520, show us one clear passage that deals with that number. And they will mock by saying, you can't find any. And what do we say? We answer, sure you can. Where will we take them? We will take them to the Great Controversy, page 351. And we say, there it is. Can't you do the math? Which one is the longest? 25, 23, or 13? So you've got the 3 prophecies, the 2520, the 2300, and the 1335. What number is bigger? 25 is the longest. So we're going to go to Great Controversy, page 351. It's going to speak about the longest and the last prophecy. We say there, I got the proof text. But of course, what we do is what we like to do in this movement is to manipulate inspiration. An honest and fair reading in the Great Controversy, 351, will tell you Ellen White is speaking about what subject? She is speaking about the 2300-day prophecy, the longest and the last great time prophecy that's given in inspiration. It's not this one, the 2520. So the 2300-day prophecy is the longest, not this one, the 2520. If we want to be honest and read intelligently, what we like to do is we try to dig into the scriptures, grab and try to find something that's not there. We try to construct a logic to make that statement say what we want it to say. And not only is it wrong, it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary to manipulate to defend the 2520. The 2520 is not a regular time prophecy. If it were, we would have had clear information about it, but there's not. Because the 2520, which comes from the term 7 times, in its original context, was not dealing with a time prophecy that was 2,500 years ago. So I've given enough examples of why we can get into a problem.
Okay, I'll finish.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We went to the third angel's message, and what we saw, we had 3 witnesses for this. What was the 3 witnesses that we used? Revelation 14, that was the first one. Second one, Spiritual Gifts, Volume 1, or the book Early Writing. Early Writing is a compilation of 3 books. One of them is Spiritual Gifts. third witness, the great controversy, on a testimony of 2 or 3, a thing is established. We established that the third angel's message comes before the harvest. Once we did that, we overlaid that information upon a reform line. It was the generic reform line that was constructed using an agricultural model and a salvation model, which we call the nature of man, or the 7 steps of salvation. When we did that, we came to this fixed point here. We can't be here. We can see that this waymark, which is the pivot point, which is Daniel 12:1, Revelation 22:11, or we call the close of probation. We call it the general close of probation. It's not a good term, especially in the contents that we understand end time prophecy in. What we then wanted to understand is where the beginning of the third angel would be. And in order to do that, we went where? We went here to early writings. Says raise the steps of the third angel. So that's probably wrong. Its arrival, its empowerment, and its close. The close of the third angel is the view here. So we have that point. We found it here in early writing. We also went to the Great Controversy, chapter 39. Remember, when we have early writing here, this is Spiritual Gifts, volume 1. What we did then is look in detail, particularly at early writing 277. What's the chapter title? The title is The Loud Cry. We've done this about 4 or 5 times now. Everybody should become familiar with that chapter title and with the page numbering. So we can establish from early writing the chapter title is The Loud Cry, and its parallel chapter is The Great Controversy. Chapter number 38, chapter title, The Final Warning. We can prove from that chapter that this is the Sunday Law. Combining all that information, we know that this is the empowerment of the third angel. So that's why we have 3 here. Then go back to 254. Ellen White tells us the arrival of the third angel, October 22nd, 1844. When Christ moves from the holy place to the most holy place, he tells you what? What happens? He tells you an angel comes down from heaven with something in his hand, a document, parchment in English. And what does he say to you? I'll start, you finish. What you remember is, I haven't read these passages more than you have. I don't have a better memory than you do. I just remember what we read here over the last 2 or 3 days. Be on guard. Why? Why be on guard? Because the hour of trial is coming. Ellen White doesn't say judgment. She says the hour of trial, or the hour of temptation is coming. That's the 3 angels. Where is he pointing to you to? Be on guard today, because the hour of temptation is coming. Where does the third angel take you to? It takes you to the time of the end. Right here, it takes you from here all the way to the end. So we've established this framework. And what I want this to say and come back to in the relationship of the first and third angel. Now, this is critical for us to understand. Okay, the first angel and the third angel are identical. Fear God, give him glory, because judgment is coming. The third angel, be on your guard. Don't receive the mark of the beast, because then judgment is coming, or our trials. So we need to be aware. I'm saying the difference of just reading a passage and understanding the story. We are so inclined to go into Millerite's history. First angel message, 1798 to April 1844. Second angel's message, April 1844 to October 1844. Is that correct? Yes, it's correct. The first angel did not finish its work in April. It could not have. It continues all the way to the end, which would be October. This brings us to an important point. I want to refresh our minds. Hopefully, we spoke about these judgments as you recall. What's the first angel saying? Stop sinning, change your life. Why? Because in 46 years, what's going to happen? Jesus, he's going to move from here to here. And he's pointing to the chart. So I didn't have a chart. From here, holy, to here, most holy. In duet. Look at Abel's case. That's what he was supposed to say. And what happens? What happens to Miller, the ambassador of God? He says, I don't want to do that. And if I did that, if I listen to you, what would be the consequence? Nobody would listen. So he does not have the faith to follow the instruction that he's been given. It's a failure of his mission. The story that we've just given is not a version that you find in inspiration. The version you find in inspiration is clean and tidy. It's sanitized. Miller is what kind of man? Faithful or unfaithful? Faithful, no faults, good person. But I've given a different narrative. So people could agree I'm not speaking in agreement with inspiration. Therefore, I must be teaching error. I'll leave it for you to decide if my version has validity when you consider the facts of what the angel should say compared to what it did say. I'm not opposed to Ellen White's version of William Miller. It's a perspective. I want to give a different perspective, not because I have any problems with William Miller. I don't. But we need to learn some lessons. What church is William Miller part of? Sardis. Let's go to Sardis. Revelation chapter 3. So, Sardis, the word itself, can mean several different things. What does Sardis mean? Before you give your answer, ask yourself, where did I get that answer from? What does Sardis mean? So my brother says Sardis means dead, and another brother says living. Elder Parmenter says so, not dead. So if you go to the Bible, it means alive. If you go to a dictionary, what does it mean? Red. Anything else? Renew. I'll put the last one, come out or leave. Sardis, alive. So Sardis means alive, red, renew, come out, leave, which is where you get this concept of renew. So these definitions are found in dictionaries, and this one is found from the Bible. Sardis equals alive is from the Bible. And the dictionary is from red, renew, come out, leave is from a dictionary. And there's a clear difference between them. So when we come to a story of Sardis, this is Miller. Now, if Miller is part of this church, it helps us to identify what kind of a person he is. What church are we members of? We are part of the Laodicea. And therefore, what is our experience? Lukewarm. So it talks about being cold, hot, lukewarm. Laodicea. Now, I don't want to do a study on this, but I'll give you some Bible passages. Matthew 5, verse 2 and 3, Matthew 15, verse 4, and Matthew 23, verse 37 to 38. So all these passages will tell you about God's church at the first advent. If I say it this way, This is the church of Caiaphas, the church of Nicodemus, the church of the Sanhedrins. Matthew chapter 5. What condition are God's church? It says that God's church is poor in spirit. So it says that they're poor. So Matthew verse 5, 2 and 3 is poor. Matthew 15 verse 14 and Matthew 23 verse 37 to 38. What does it mean if you're poor in spirit? It means you don't have something. If I said you were poor, it doesn't mean you don't have any money in the bank. So if you're poor in spirit, it means you have no spirituality. Matthew 5 verse 2 and 3 equals poor and no spirituality. Matthew 15 verse 14 is going to talk about the church. And it's going to say that the leaders of the church are blind and also all the congregation. We'll read, "Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into a ditch." So you're poor and you're blind. So Matthew 4, verse 5, 2 and 3, you're poor and you have no spirituality. And Matthew 15, verse 14, you're blind. Chapter 23, 27. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto white sepulchres, or tombs or coffins, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones and all uncleanness. So this is a tomb, and you're white on the outside, and you're what on the inside? You're dead. You're dead on the inside. So Matthew 5, verse 2 and 3, you're poor, you have no spirituality. Matthew 15, verse 14, you're blind. Matthew 23, verse 27, 28, your tomb is white on the outside, but you're dead on the inside. Verse 28 tells you what bones mean. What's the bones represent? These bones are a symbol of iniquity and hypocrisy. So the symbol of sin on the inside is an analogy of why you look white on the outside. What is white a symbol of? Righteousness. And on the outside, what are you? Righteous. And on the inside, what are you? You're sinful. So you look good on the outside, but on the inside, you're full of sin. So if you're in this condition on the outside, what do you look like? Cold. So this is what you're on the outside. What are you on the inside? You're cold. You got inside, outside. Laodicea is cold, warm, and hot. Okay. So this is the condition of God's church in the time of Christ. And if you went to the verse that dealt with Laodicea, what does it say about the church? It says you're poor, blind, and naked. It's the three characters of Laodicea found in Revelation chapter 3. The same characteristics that we find here. So in Matthew 5, you're poor with no spirituality. In Matthew 15, you're blind. In Matthew 23, you're a tomb. You're white on the outside, but you're dead on the inside, and you're full of your bone. It means you're just full of sin. Poor, blind, and it says naked. So that nakedness means you don't have the right clothing, or it's false clothing. You would call it self-righteousness. It's the same characteristics that you find here in God's church at the time of Christ, the first advent. So I'll go and ask the question again. If you're a Laodicean, What condition are you in? You're cold. You're not warm and you're not hot. You give the appearance of lukewarm because you're a hypocrite. That's what the bones say. But in reality, you're dead. That's what Laodicean condition is. People who are eternally dead. And externally, they're what? They're alive. Externally, they're alive. Internally, they're dead. So we agree that's a problem. Let's go to Sardis, Revelation 3, verse 1. They have a name that says, well, we'll read the verse. And unto the angel of the church of Sardis write, these things saith he that had the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know thy works, and thou hast a name, and thou livest, and art dead. So this was Laodicea, and this is Sardis. And what does it say about Sardis? They have a name that says what? That they are alive. But what are they? They are dead. They're dead internally, but they have a name that says that they're alive. Now, people struggle with the subject of the nature of man, the threefold nature of man. Now, when he says the inside, how do you know what's on the inside of a person? As a man thinketh, so he is. What do you think comes through your mouth, through your hands, with your behavior? So the Millerites saw this. They were supposed to be ambassadors for God. They were supposed to be alive. But it turns out that internally, they're dead. So if you're eternally dead, what's going to come out of your mouth? Dead things or alive things? Dead things. So what comes out of the message or the mouth or the doctrine of the Millerites? Will it be a living message or a deadly message? It'll be a deadly message. Jesus, when he spake to the Samaritan women, they have a discussion over what issue? Water. If you think her water, if you drink her water, what will happen? You'll be thirsty again. You must keep on drinking because it never satisfies. If you drink from Christ's water, what kind of water did he call it? He called it living water. What comes out of the belly? A stream. Can you sort of put your arms around it and stop it from coming out? No, it will just leak through. It's unstopping. What did it come from? From the belly. Which is where? Inside or outside? It's inside. If you're alive on the inside, what will come out? Life, a living, giving message. So the Millerites are going to fulfill this prophecy. On the outside, their name is what? First angel's message. That's what they were. They came down from heaven and they looked beautiful. They had a name that say they are alive. You would trust the first angel, wouldn't you? Of course you would. Why? Because they look white on the outside and they're deceptive? Because inside they have a deadly message. They're going to teach you that the judgment is not investigated. It's executive, and that it's not the message that we're supposed to give. So why did they give the message? Like us, they do not trust God. They want to take the management of this project into their hands. It's all about project management. Who's directing this project? God, Jesus, or Miller? Miller. Miller is not going to trust what God wants him to do. He would rather go and get his instruction from the church. Now, what would happen in reality if he followed the instruction? He would have gone to the people. And he says 46 years. What's going to happen? You can't see it. You can't feel it. Millions of miles away, you can't even see with a telescope. It's that far. Jesus will move rooms, start dealing with Abel, And that's what's going to happen. And he doesn't want to say that. Why? What's he afraid of? No one's going to hear him. Let me ask you a question. So this is kind of a cliche phrase. It has some accuracy to it. At the end of the 46 years, how many people are saved? What number pops up in your head, in your mind? 50 people. 46 years, millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of men hours, people go bankrupt, give their life savings for this project, and the end result is what? 50 people? You tell me, does that sound like a successful project? And the person who's commissioned to give it doesn't even make it. So Sardis equals alive from the Bible. It's the first angel's message. The dictionary says Sardis is red, renew, come out and leave. So we can smile. We can philosophize then. It was necessary to do this. John does it. William Miller does it. And today, Elder Jeff Pippinger does it. John died a broken man. He wavered. It was only Christ's goodness that protected his reputation. John was crumbling because he couldn't reconcile his dead message with the truth of the gospel. Miller does the same thing. Today you know the results of Elder Jeff. Now we could argue that if they didn't do it this way, no one would listen. In this room, there are a few people who have been here for a long time in this movement, but it's a handful. We've been doing this for 30 years. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what is the end result? A few hundred people. And the leader didn't even make it. If William Miller had been faithful and true and given the message that he was directed to give, he may have saved more than 100 people. His message would have said, in 46 years, this is about to happen. And the very day when it was prophesied to be fulfilled, when everything would seem to have come to nothing, they would have expected it. It would not have been a surprise. And God doesn't even wait. What does he do? October 22nd, he sends the third angel to do the next part of the work. The first and the third angel's message run immediately one after another. God was merciful. He had it all prepared. If only his children would have trusted him. The perspective that I have given in an alternative perspective, one that you might find be harsh or judgmental or critical upon people, is not intended to be. But it's intended to be honest evaluation, prophetically speaking about what happened. This is not a criticism upon John, Miller, or Elder Jeff, but it's an acknowledgement that Sardis is in the same mess as Laodicea, and they end up having corrupted messages. Now we're supposed to be coming out of that condition, and therefore we approach these subjects. We too must be extremely careful on one issue: to trust in God and not try to take things into our own hands because we don't like the way God manages this project. But it seems scary if we follow his way. If he tells us, which he does, that there's no literal Sunday law, should we be fearful of that? Like Miller was John, like Jeff Pippinger is? We should embrace the message. We should come out of this condition, accept the truth as it is in Jesus. And if no one listens, accept that fact. Because when you go down the false path, you only get 50 people anyway. If they had given a proper message, maybe that would have saved 55 people, maybe 45, but it would have been a true, faithful message. And it's always better to trust in God than do our own thing. Yesterday, we gave a version of those three histories that inferred you must give a false message at the beginning. If you don't, no one will listen. John has to say the end of sin. Daniel 9:24 means the end of captivity. He doesn't have to say that. But Miller has to say, this is the end of the world in 46 years. Be scared. He doesn't have to say that. And Elder Jeff has to say, Sunday law is coming, rather than saying, we can now ordain women into leadership positions because they're equal to men. And the model of leadership in a marriage is now defunct. In those three dispensations, the first messenger could have done that. But what we found when the work is taken up at the end, midnight cry, by the second messenger, they don't repeat the same mistakes of the first. Therefore, I want to encourage each of us to begin to read honestly, to listen and intelligently, and trust God, who can come up with better answers than we could. If the 2520 is not the longest and last prophecy, and it's not, we could accept that. We should try to explain that and not try to give a false message. We try to twist inspiration to make it fit with our version. The truth will always set you free. The 2520 is the most important prophecy that's given to us in inspiration, but it's not the longest time prophecy in the terms and framework that Ellen White speaks about these issues. We're not talking about mathematics, about which one is longer. We can all do the math. What we want to understand is that Ellen White means when she says those statements. An honest reading, Great Controversy, 351, will tell you she's referring to the 2300 days. And we should use sound, proper logic, not the logic that says, can't you do mathematics? 25 is larger than 23. It doesn't work that way, and we should try to be mature about this issue. Looking at the vows, we look at the third angel's message. We find where he ends. We want to look where it begins, and we want to see its relationship to the first angel's message. And this is the end of our presentation. Any thoughts?
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Very good, Tony. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thinking that this one, I don't remember the order and things, that this one comes after the ones where he did, I think it did, after the ones where he did, when did the third angel arrive? Because you kind of referenced that earlier, because I have those notes that I've been working on.
I have the DVD in my thing right now, so.
Yeah. We just really learned, you know, it's good for those that are new that they didn't learn all the backwards stuff and upside down and wrong, that they come in and they learn what is right. You know?
Yes.
Yeah, it really is.
So it's good that I didn't start with Jeff Peppinger.
Hopefully so. And it's not bad. It's not that, you know, when you trace the history, you see that what he's saying is John the Baptist and William Miller, they didn't have things right, and
They didn't have the faith to speak out. They were afraid to share what they knew, what God asked them to do.
yeah, and then like with we were talking the other night with the Time of the End magazine, that the message of equality, the two streams, was right there, or the message of two streams was right there anyways, and all along, and yet you come to this place and you can't understand it. But You have the opportunity to, you know. You have, so the message was all there, it just wasn't understood. And it goes along with those of us that have been, I think it was Sister Jackie that said it once, it seems like everything's changing. And it's not so much that everything was changing, as everything's getting set straight the way it was supposed to be.
Yep.
So really good study. Really good study. Anybody have thoughts or questions?
Did we understand why the 2520 is not the longest? Did we see that? That's pretty much what we want to see too.
That it's an application.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're making an application.
And it is important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that it's not, it's not what we thought it was as in the 7 times, but it's an application that is made based on those verses. And that each dispensation.
Well, in the next presentation I do tomorrow, the 7 times, he talks about the 7 times. Because the 7 times it was taken as 2 words when basically it was just 1 word or something like that.
That's up there, but it was intensity, not duration.
Right, but still, it was well, I'll read it tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, if I can say something, because I think in Spain, a little bit at the time, he clarifies. Exactly like Joseph, he was a prophet, and he said that the cows represent the years. The same way Miller, it was given to him by God. He was a prophet. We have to accept this. And if God told him that it is a time prophecy, he made that application. It was given to him by God. So that's the application that the prophet is allowed to do.
Right. Right. And just like in this dispensation.
So how's that applied to us? God's asking us to do things, and we can't be afraid of that.
Well, it applies to us because we have our prophets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, God is directing them, and
Right.
even though sometimes, because many times it seems like they speak against the spirit of prophecy, Ellen White and stuff like that. Even Sister White said, if you think that God is not going to give us new light, you're making a mistake, because new light will come. And this is new light that, you know, God is giving his prophets.
Amen.
So it's just part of our faith to believe it or not.
Right.
And even, if we don't get it right away on things, because sometimes we don't. I mean, this we do because we've been doing it a long time. But even when we don't get it, we just know that it came from God. And then eventually we will get it,
And I do believe that line upon line, it was given to us in God's mercy, because if he would just give us the information, we would not believe it. So he had to give us line upon line to give us some type of thing to hold on to say, oh yeah, it's true. Because if we wouldn't see the line upon line and God would just give us the prophecy, then we wouldn't believe it.
Right. And then also the line up, I'm sorry. Also the line upon line is the compare and contrast. It's the same thing. So God has been giving us things in order.
A quiet group.
I know, huh?
Do you guys want to do some reading? Do you want to close up early?
For myself, I would go lay down because I have a back problem.
Okay,
This has been a very difficult week for me. I've been to doctors and everywhere. I can't walk anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen, if I'm going to end up having back surgery or just a shot to help me. I don't know. But right now, I have issues, big issues with my back. So I
okay,
will go lay down and I'll see you guys in the morning.
okay.
Okay, we'll be praying
Night.
for you.
Yep.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you. Yes, I need prayer.
Good.
Rest well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked well this week because I got my appointments like one after another, but I had to walk to this appointment so much that it's like I can't do it anymore.
Oh,
Yeah, and sitting
Prayers.
is really difficult. It's my worst fear came true, so we'll see what's going to happen next.
amen.
Prayers.
Oh. What about everybody else? Somebody want to do some reading, or do you guys want to have some
Whatever
music?
the majority wants,
Huh?
whatever anybody else wants, me.
I'm gonna mail you DVDs, Robert, since we're not
Okay.
all meeting. I have DVDs for you. Did I mail you one this last week or so?
Yeah, it may have been a week or so ago.
Okay, well, I might have a duplicate because I don't remember what I sent you, so if I have a duplicate, sorry.
Maybe I'll just watch them twice.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, we just got some in the mail.
Yeah, and I got another one ready to go out.
Oh, awesome.
Well,
So is there something you have to read or something, or is that what you're waiting for?
no, I was just asking if anybody want to do any reading out of Desire of Ages or anything, or do we want to just spend some time in prayer, or I'll leave it up to you guys because we're done early. And the presentations are a little bit shorter anyways on the when we do the Zoom camp meetings.
Yeah.
Or do we need to pray the Sabbath in, or?
It is I think it is that. It's a little bit early, but I think it's about that time. Do you want to do that?
Yes.
You want
Sure.
me to pray?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Dear Heavenly Father, again, we want to thank you for this opportunity for all of us here together to study thy word. We just want to thank you for the Sabbath day that's approaching us here, Lord, and for this camp meeting that's going on this weekend. Help bless people that are presenting the word. Excuse me. Lord, be with them. Be with us all and our families through this time of trouble here we're having throughout the nation, Lord, around the world even. So, Lord, we just ask for your blessings and give us wisdom and understanding to understand the message that has been presented, Lord. We just ask in your name, in Jesus' name, amen.
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 Yeah, and I was talking earlier about when it comes to faith and not to have any fear. And it may be sometimes, we're still got this carnal side, and the more heaven bound we get, the less fear we have that there's nothing they can do to us. And that this is all what it's supposed to be for these end time events. And I will share with because I posted the World War III study, the notes on WhatsApp, and there were some that I think I posted them there before I finished them, but there were some comments from this one brother in Africa. And I remember watching the documentary. Did anybody watch the documentary on the Spanish flu?
Yeah.
Because if I remember right, in the Spanish flu, it talked about it came in 3 different waves, right? And I had been thinking myself that just based on looking at Egypt when the plagues fell and how they came one after the other, and each one would be more intense, and they were, what was the purpose of them? To maybe multiple purpose. They were judgments, but also striving with the hearts of people as well, right? So we're seeing these external events that are striving with the hearts of people. And you have Donald Trump hunkering down and getting more and more stubborn with what he's doing. And I just had been thinking for a while that based on Egypt, that this is going to, I don't know if it's right to say go away, but stop, ease up, what have you, and then come back. And I had been thinking that for a while, and then somebody posted comments on the or messaged me some comments on the adding to the notes, because I included in the notes that we'll go over tomorrow the coronavirus application. And he put on there a brief study on the Spanish flu, putting it in there a little bit more and showing the 3 waves, which totally, made sense that it is going to be that way. Now, whether or not it's going to be the same virus, I don't know. The Spanish flu was the same thing, so there might be differences. But I thought it was interesting because yesterday, if anybody's watching I know we don't really care to listen to Donald Trump speak on the stuff that he says, but Dr. Fauci, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before, maybe you guys heard it, where he said that he is seeing that this is probably going to be, I think the word he used was cyclical. Is that how he said it? That it would cycle and be seasonal. So though it will go away, it will come back. And I just thought that was interesting because the Spanish flu came in waves. I've been thinking that for a couple of months, and then Dr. Fauci says that. I don't know. I'm just going to keep watching the presentations as they come out and see what gets continued light that opens up. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, I wanted to say something. This is Shelley. Maybe not exactly on that, but there's been a lot of remedies going around. So I was thinking, well, this is a good time for us to make the remedies. And there's so many out there. Have you guys made any?
Remedies? I don't know that, I don't know if anybody's heard anything on the remedies. I open up to anybody that does.
Well, I made one. My girlfriend made one, so I tasted it. And so it's you do a quart of vinegar with the mother, and then you do garlic, onion, ginger, a hot pepper, one other thing. And then you grind that all up and throw it in the vinegar, and then you let it set for a month, and you shake it once a day. And then after the month's up, then you can start taking it. Hers was 5 years old, the one I tasted, and it was really hot. And it worked. You take like a tablespoon. So when you're sick or pre-sick, you do like 3 tablespoons a day. And then when you're sick, you take more. So, and isn't that part of our job as medical missionary?
Is to know the remedies? Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's part of it. Yeah. I mean, that's just the practical side of it. So I was just curious if you guys were talking about that, and because I've seen like 4 or 5 of them. That particular one's only $15, where some of them are $120. And I mean, it's just ridiculous how much money you can spend on them. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm just curious if you guys had made any, that's all.
No, the only thing that I've done was, it says it's good to drink like hot or warm, so I did some ginger, and I mean for myself.
Right, okay.
I did some ginger and some raw honey with some distilled water, heated it up. That's all I've done.
So those are really good, and those will last just a couple days. So these things are more long-term, where you make them now, and then when everybody's sick, you don't have time to make them because
right.
And then some you can make with alcohol, and some people don't like that, so anyway, there's just quite a few roaming around. So I made the cheapest one I could find. So, and then what I'd heard on 1918 was hot and cold fomentations. The people that did those for 1918 were lived.
Yeah, you probably got that video.
Yeah, I watched a couple of them on that.
Yeah.
Someone sent me something today that the ibuprofen and the Advil is.
Anna brought that up.
Yeah, I have a niece that works in a hospital up in Mammoth, and she works around a lot of doctors. So she gave me the information that if you take ibuprofen, that actually attracts the virus. And
Yeah.
those who have taken the ibuprofen, actually, when they got sick, they didn't make it. And those who did not take ibuprofen on a regular basis, when they got sick, they recovered.
Right, right. Yeah, I just saw that today.
Saying if you have to take any kind of pain medication, take Tylenol only. Don't even take naproxen. Tylenol
Right.
only. That
Yeah.
doesn't do me any good. That stuff doesn't touch my pain. But you know.
I know that the when I used to go on my flights, and sometimes I'd get to my hotel and I knew that I was getting really sick, and I couldn't get sick because I had to fly back. And so the first thing I do is I fill up a tub with the hottest water I can handle. It's kind of warm, and I would soak in it for about 15 minutes. And my entire body, everything would be just completely sweating. And then I would just spray a shower after a real cold shower, just real short. And then I was so exhausted, but by the time I got up in the morning, I was completely cured. I mean, and I use that method so many times. It really does work. You sweat it out, and then you have to rest. Rest is important. And I've also done water fasting. It's one of the best things you can do, is to not overload your body with eating, because then the body can repair itself naturally if you don't overload it with the eating, because eating does cause a lot of energy that the body has to do. So if you can, water fast for, as long as you can, and drink lots of fluids, even tea, not the herbals, and then doing the sweating in the hot bath with a cold shower after, and then just go to sleep and just rest. It really works. I've been doing it for a long time. It works.
Amen.
Didn't have the corona.
No, but again, what we're looking at, a virus that's mutating, and that's the most dangerous thing, is that it keeps mutating, and it's on a level that we've never seen any virus do. The virus has a brain, and it knows how to survive, and it wants to survive. And if you try to, it's working overtime to survive. And that's the scary part. It's a virus that they've never, they even say that when they get the vaccine, it may not be enough because the virus is mutating. So when they get a vaccine, what's the virus going to do? Is it going to change and mutate? And I mean, it really is a plague, really.
The doctors do say that it is mutating very slowly. Even though it is mutating, it's a very slow mutation, which gives the medical community time to make the vaccine. So we're just hoping that it just slows down even farther. And my sister, she's making her own hand sanitizer at home with a mixture of aloe vera gel and at least 70% alcohol. And I'm going to be making my own masks because I'm still working out in the public. I work in retail, and my employer doesn't provide masks for us. So I'm going to be making my own here at home with paper towels.
Yeah, there's a lot of people making masks, especially, well, I don't know, especially here, but here, I mean, people are just full on board. I mean, 400 and passing them out. And we have a Joann's here, and they give you all the free stuff to make it. And then you just bring it back to Joann's after you sew it, and then they'll disperse it to all of the medical people around.
That's
So
great.
here, people have really, really stepped up. It's a small town, and I think we've reached 2 women not long ago. Came up with it, but now we have 10 minutes from a base, from a Fort Huachuca with 35,000 soldiers, and so I think they have 100 cases there, and so now I was a little bit scared to go out the other day, and then I just had to claim the promise, perfect love, cast out all fear. But I really felt my heart. I was afraid to go outside, but it all worked out. We can drive through the bank now. We don't have to go inside different places, and it's getting a lot better. People aren't hoarding as much as, so there's food now, because for like almost a month we really didn't have any. But mommies are giving their milk to other mommies, and their breast milk so their babies can get fed, and it's just really kind of cool the way people are coming together, and that's what happens in a crisis.
Good info. I copied and pasted what Sister Susan put in there.
Where's she putting them?
Maybe she can say it because I don't know how to pronounce it, or maybe Francisco can say it. NAC. I don't know how to say that.
Oh, I bought that. I already got that, because that's what Christine asked us to get. NAC. I got that already from our vitamin store.
Okay.
That's kind of expensive though.
Yeah.
It was $26 for a bottle.
Yeah, you just ask them for NAC, NAC.
Great.
You don't have to pronounce it. They know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
They have two different. They have LAC and NAC, but we got it at Rayleigh's. They had it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's only like $10. It's
And
worth
then-
trying. So $10 is a cheap remedy.
For the immune system, correct?
Right, it boosts your immune system. Is what it's
Mhm.
for.
I'm never around anybody. I haven't been out in, I don't think, 2 weeks. So I've already quarantined myself if I had anything, right? But I want to get some more zinc, and I'm gonna look into the NAC, NAC.
And that's the stuff that Pastor Doug Batchelor was promoting. This stuff. The doctor he had on his,
Neil Nedley.
yeah, he was recommending it. Said it boosts the immune system pretty good. So
Yeah.
I'll try anything for $10.
Isn't that what Christina was talking about a couple Sabbaths ago? She recommended it, I think, 2 or 3 different things. Anyway, that's why I got it from. So
I know she said zinc. I remember that, and I didn't remember the NAC stuff though.
I had a friend, she has a condition where she has too much metal, so there's like stuff she can't wear, stuff she can't, whatever. But anyway, she gave me 3 bottles of zinc. I did give one to one of Mark's workers, but but she gave me 3 bottles of zinc. But even before this all happened, so it was like right before all this happened. So I was blessed like that. Praise the Lord.
I'm gonna check out and try to get a good night's sleep. You can stay on if you want because Christine is hosting. I just had a rare time of not sleeping, so for some reason or other.
Well, I guess we could all check out.
All
Love
right,
you
God
all.
bless.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. Good
well.
night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. God
Sleep
bless.
well. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath. Don't forget your remedies.
I love watching Judah. Judah.
I know, huh? A dog came over our house. Judah was overly excited today, and he barks really loud, but it was strange. So I got up and I go in the backyard. There's another dog in my backyard.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it was a small dog. So they're like barking at each other, and I'm thinking, okay, well, but they were barking, but you could tell that they weren't going to fight.
Uh-huh.
But I still didn't know any better, just in case. But that dog, because I put Jude in the house and locked up the little doggy door, and the dog, we don't have fences, but we have walls, brick walls, and that little dog jumped the wall.
Oh my goodness.
So apparently he belongs to some doctor and he's just a wall jumper, so.
Oh, so you know who he belongs to. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, I asked the neighbor, well, so let me go find out where is that. I could go tell him. She goes, well, I'm not really sure, but I would have gone look. So,
Cool.
my faithful heed.
You
So good to see you guys.
yeah, good to see you. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath. Hopefully all this will be put together and we can see each other in September. I'm counting on it.
Yes. Yes, I hope so in September. Judah, what are you
He just wants a bone. Sit down. Come on, down.
doing?
All right, guys.
Okay, see you
Love you.
tomorrow. Love you.
Bye, Victor, Leon. And who is the phone? Do you know, Christina?
I do not.
Okay. Well, hi, phone. Happy Sabbath. Victor and Leon, congratulations. See you tomorrow.
See you guys tomorrow.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.